What's up, guys? This is Nick from The Real Shot. We are going to talk some steelhead today. I got Matt here with us, and he's going to ask me some questions, and we're going to go over some products to get you started to get on the rivers for the tributaries this season.
Is that going on right now?
That's going on right now.
That's
right now. Northern rivers are still got a lot of ice on it. There's a few fish trickling, but down south, it's been pretty good. Last 4 weeks have been phenomenal. Brown trout, steelhead down south. It's a little crowded because that's really all that's really open right now. But if you can get down there, you'll get on some fish if you can sneak in some spots that people aren't in right now.
So how are you targeting these bad boys right now?
So right now, there's a few different methods. Beads, if you have fresh spawn, that is probably the number one. But beads, jigs, tube jigs work great. Spinners, and we'll cover that. We'll cover all the baits probably in the next one, but we're just gonna go over some float setups right now.
Perfect.
So
I'm ready to learn.
All right, so you want a long rod to get that tip up in the air to get a nice drift. You don't want a bunch of lines slacked in the water. So here at the store, we got a bunch of affordable rods from $60 to $100. Starting with the Aculite, it's at $50. So this here is a 9-foot medium heavy. I prefer an 8.6 medium light plus. So 8.6, 9-foot, 9.6, 10, 10.6, and medium light or medium. But some of those big steelhead, a medium heavy would be just fine.
Yeah.
These come with, they're really affordable. They're just to start. Like I said, $59.99. I've guided with these for salmon for the last 3 years and haven't had a single issue with it. And then we have Okuma and a few Shimanos. And we are currently out of stock with the St. Croix Triumphs right now, but that's a great $130 rod.
Are most of the rods in that length, they're two-piece rods, right?
They're all two-piece. So don't be worried about putting it in the vehicle because they all break down to 4.5 feet. So
when you transfer the rods like that way, do you recommend like a PVC tube or something like that, or just carefully store them in the back of the vehicle?
Yeah, usually I'll piece them together like this, and then I'll reel it tight, and then with the slack line, I'll wrap the line around this big eye right here, so it's real nice and tight, and all the lines wrapped up so it doesn't get tangled with any other rods. But you can get a very small rod stock,
like one of these?
Like one of these over here, an extra small, a small rod stock in the spinning version, probably be on, because the spinning version is a thicker for those wider rods, because that's a big guide.
So this one right here?
Yeah, so that one right there, you can just snake it over the top, the small, because these are for 6 to 6.5. It'll be a little long, but it'll still be protected.
Nice.
So
cool.
And then you're gonna want to pair it with like a 2,500 or 3,000 size up to 4,000 if you really want. I prefer like a 3,000 size reel. So we have Akumas in the $50, $60 range, in the C30 and C40, really durable. It's a little slower gear ratio, so you're gonna have to pick up the line and reel a little faster on that guy. I do have Shimano's 3000s in that $100 range if you're looking for a little better reel. And that's in the $50 range. I do have that neck save. So it's a little bit bigger than this one here, but it's a $50, pretty smooth. So pretty affordable to get started. You're gonna want to go with either a 20 to 30 pound braid, a thicker braid that floats on top of the water in warmer temps, but in cold temps, like less than 32 degrees, that braid's gonna freeze up. So I recommend mono. So like a 8 to 12 pound mono. And we do have some blood run over here that floats great.
You use that what is it, reel snot this time of year to help keep like things from freezing up at all?
You can, but that just adds scent and stuff, and I like to be as scentless as possible.
Got ya.
So Blood Run makes this floating line in all sorts of pretty colors: purple, pink, orange, green. I like the lime green myself because that's the easiest to pick up when I'm mending line. So they have that in 10, 15 pound right now. So on the spinning reels, I like a 10 pound because 15 pounds a little bit too much on a spinning reel. It's too thick a diameter. It'll just fall right off. So the 10 is the most I would recommend on a spinning reel.
What did you mean by mending line?
So when your float is floating down, you got a bunch of line, and your line's going to be floating faster than your bobber and your setup. So you're going to have that bowl. So with a long rod, it helps you pick up that line and reel it up and make sure you don't have that bowl. Because when your bobber goes down, you want to be on that hook set as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And with a bunch of line in the water, it's difficult. So you want to have that line out of the water, want that slack out, and you mend it up with that high rod. And that's why I like a bait caster too, because my bait caster is the Revo Rocket. It's a 9-to-1, so that's like 40 inches of pickup line. So you can really one quick turn of the bait caster, and that line slack is picked up. And
Yeah, I noticed it on your socials. You've been
Yeah.
using the bait caster quite a bit this year. Do we have
100%.
rods for bait casting then?
We
in
do,
stock?
yeah. So we have the Shimano Scimitar. We have the Okuma SST. The Okuma SST is probably the best for the money right now that I have in the store at $100, $99.99. And this is a 10-6 medium, so that's perfect for a guy to just get started with. I mean, you can go all the way up to 13, 14, but in those small rivers, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You're going in those small spots. A 10-6 is probably the longest I would go in the small, tight areas.
When we went last fall,
Yep.
we use spinning gear. Do you go to bait casting gear where there's more current flow, or when do you switch it up from like bait casting to spinning? Or is it just because you had me and it's a lot easier?
Right, yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, most people are going to be used to a spinning reel, so
Okay.
I guide with all spinning gear,
Yep.
just because it's easier for the customer. I mean, I prefer a bait caster
Yeah.
because I've been with bait casters my entire life, bass fishing,
Yep.
and I'm really familiar with the bait caster. And with a bait caster, you can get a high ratio, like that 9-to-1 I was talking about. You
Yep.
pick up line really fast.
Yeah, I did
So-
notice that. That's a good tip. I mean, because we didn't have a whole lot of current flow. Is
No,
it
and we
moving?
were fishing right in front of us
Yeah.
too at 10 feet, so we didn't have much line to pick up.
Is there a lot of flow right now with all like the snow melt off and the rain?
It picked up yesterday with the rain, but I mean it's still really low and slow.
Okay.
More rain and more runoff will get it high and flowing a little bit better. But right now it's still pretty low and slow.
Is it quite dirty right now too?
It stained up a little bit where I was fishing yesterday. Last week it was super clear.
Okay.
Super clear, and fish were really spooky, but it was like 1.5 foot, 2 foot visibility where I was at anyway.
Yep.
Yesterday because of that rain and runoff.
So we got a rod. We talked about line. We got a reel.
Yep.
What else
Now,
do we need?
Let's get into the float. So
yeah, this is
blood-
interesting stuff.
Blood Run has, and in the shallow water, I really like running a fixed float. I really like as light as possible when I'm fishing less than 4 feet of water. So I'll go to that 6.2. We're out of that 6.2 right now, but I have an 8 gram to show you right now. So 8 gram float, it goes, so you're going to want 7 to 8 grams of weight underneath to get to natural buoyancy. And so if you got too light, it'll be too far up. So the water line will be right here. But if you got the correct weight below the bobber, it's going to sit level right on that line. And that's what you want to hit. So the subtlest bites, you'll see.
Yep.
And then you'll be able to whack them. So if you got too less of a line here, and you won't be able to see that bite as well. And then if you have too much weight, obviously it's gonna sink and you won't see your bobber. But I like to load it up with shot. So what I like to do is I'll run a slide, sinking slide weight, and then I'll run a couple shots below that. And then I'll run either a sack or a bead. And then we'll get into that too. So on my fluorocarbon, so I'll run that mono or braid on the main line. And then for a fluorocarbon, I like using sniper, or I like a shooter 7 pound as well. So for the money, your best fluorocarbon right here is your sniper, because you get 200 yards of 8 pound for $24.99. Really great value. I use that most of the time, but this stuff is really, really good. That shooter, it's super subtle, super thin, and super strong. I mean, you're paying for it, obviously, but that 7 pound shooter is what I fish with most of the time for steelhead.
And what was your braid connection? What was your pound on that?
15 to 30.
15 to 30.
Yep. So you want a bigger diameter just because it floats better.
Floats a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Nice. We were getting into the spawn sack stuff, the beads. You kind of hit on a little bit.
We'll talk more tackle
on a different
one. But let's go back to those floats.
Yeah.
Because the fixed float, you need to have tubing. So what you're gonna do on a fixed float is it doesn't have, those normal spring pinchers to wreck your line with. So on this tubing, you're gonna cut about 1/4 inch off of each, and that orange is gonna go on the top to cinch your line down to. So you're gonna put your tubing on first on your line. So your orange goes first, your clear goes on second, but then you can slip it in there to cinch it down, so it's fixed all the time. But you still can move it up and down according to how deep you're fishing.
Nice.
So those are pretty slick. We do have a few Amish outfitters too. Does the same thing. I like blood runs. They are a little bit pricey, but normally you're not breaking off a bunch of floats in the river, because if you're getting hung up, your leader is going to break first because it's a lower poundage. So if you're going to run 10-pound mono, you're going to want to run 8-pound less fluorocarbon on the bottom. So when you get hung up, you break the leader off instead of breaking your $5 float. So I got assortment full of blood run hooks here. Great for running your float setups. I got plenty of beads here. We'll talk that later.
Yep.
But let's talk terminal right now. So what I like to do, I run my main line. My bobber is going to be on my main line, and then I'm going to run a barrel swivel on that, and then I'm going to run my fluorocarbon. So what you want, a really good barrel swivel.
He's a fast walker. Yep.
We're out of a lot of them right now, but this is the swivel I use, the Spro. This is a 35-pound. I use 2 sizes bigger than this right now. So that swivel, I'll tie my main line directly to that swivel, and then my fluorocarbon will go below that. So then my fluorocarbon will break off if I get hung up. Then all I have to do is retie my fluorocarbon leader.
What's your go-to connection knot for that then?
I don't use a connection knot. It goes. My main line goes directly to that barrel swivel.
Yeah. So what do you have a specific knot you like to tie when you go to your?
When mono, it's just a regular fisherman's knot.
Okay.
Yep. If I'm tying braid, then I'll do a clinch, so it's a double loop instead of just a single.
Okay.
You can tie a polymer knot too for the braided line. Obviously, it's a really popular knot for braid. This is the sliding weight I was talking about. Just a little tiny 1/8 ounce sinker to get that float standing straight as soon as it hits the water. This is a heavier weight right above your barrel swivel. It's perfect because that weight will make it sink or vertical right away, and then your shot will follow, and your shot will be even with the bait. These are the hooks that I use, are the Owners. They're a cutting point. Let's see, the smaller ones are right here. So we're out of the 8s and 6s that I use right now, but I can show you these real quick.
And a lot of that stuff's just coming in, right?
Right, I mean, freshwater's, open water's coming, so a lot of this stuff is coming in. It's just coming in every day as we speak. But that hook, I don't know if you can zoom in, it has a cutout in the tip, so it's nothing to penetrate. It takes literally ounces of force to get that in.
Really?
So that's the hooks that I use for trout and salmon all the time. So it literally takes nothing for that to get in and deep. So that's what I like about these Owner hooks. So yeah, it's got a diagram right there so it's got a cutout in the tip. Super, super awesome. That's what's on the treble hooks of the ST41s too that I tie some of my leaders with for the salmon.
Now, like I remember back in the day, and it's been a minute since I've done the early like trout, salmon stuff. Like, you don't have to be barbless or anything this time of year, do you?
No,
Is that just
Wisconsin is not specified.
Okay.
So that's more of a West Coast thing.
Okay. Sweet. So you got more stuff that's coming up next week. What is that, Wednesday you're going to be doing your continue on?
Whatever time Lance tells me to.
Well, it's pretty good. So you covered
yeah.
a lot on the basics for getting into float.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk about like eggs and beads.
Yeah,
and...
we'll talk tackle next time.
Okay.
So.
And then I always got to ask you, right? Everything we talked about should be available online and in store.
You got it.
And if it's not, call the store, 920-750-6140, or look it up at therealshot.com, right?
Yep, just ask for me if you have any questions.
Perfect. All right, well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you, like Nick said, whenever Lance tells us to.
Whatever Lance tells us to.